Well, hi there. My name's Erica, and I would like to welcome you to the third of four workshops to help you learn how to share your faith digitally. We're so glad you're here. For many of us, the past few weeks have brought uncertainty and drastic change to our lives. I've definitely experienced some discouraging moments, but also some bright ones too, especially as I've received messages from friends I haven't talked to in a while. And it has really reminded me all the more of how hope is powerful and everyone is feeling a need for it. And so, what better time to help people experience the lasting hope that Jesus offers? Digital connections are our new normal right now, and we have some proven resources to help you share the love of Christ with others digitally. So today we're going to hear from Matt Watts and Jeff Kreiser. Matt lives in Orlando, where he works for Crew as a team leader in the digital products and services department. And he works on developing digital tools that help people take steps of faith. He likes asking the what if and why can't we questions to explore what could be possible. And Jeff lives in Sacramento, California, where he is the director of the Acts Group, which is a consultancy activating unified gospel initiatives in communities and cities. He's been doing strategic development and church relations with Crew since 2017. Additionally, all of the resources mentioned today will be available both on our website and through an email that you'll receive following this workshop. And one more thing we wanted to mention is that part of why we're offering this workshop is because we're partnering with a global movement called Go 2020. And that movement is about equipping believers from around the globe in one of the largest movements of prayer, caring, and sharing the message of hope. And through Go 2020, we are collectively working to mobilize 100 million believers to share the gospel with 1 billion people in the month of May. And so we're so excited to see what God does and for you to be a part of his work in the world. So let's dive in. Welcome, Jeff and Matt.
Morning. Thanks so much for having us. Super grateful to be able to be with you all today.
Yeah, great to be with you as well from Sacramento, California. We got spring has sprung here, and that's a joyful thing for us with everything else that's been going on. We want to get into our presentation today because Matt and I are both incredibly excited about people living every day a dynamic relationship with Jesus. And we know you are too. That's why you're on this webinar, that you want to learn and know and understand what does it mean to join God in what he's doing and take steps of faith every day in your life. And that's what we have been able to do joyfully in terms of the work that we've done with Crew Digital Missions through digital products and services. That's why we exist. And as you know, Crew has sought to do everything that it can to see the Great Commission fulfilled, to see everybody really come alive in terms of their faith and walk. That's a picture of my family. We are a family of five again in our home. I have three adult sons really now, two adult sons who've been out at college. They're home for this period of time. And one younger son who's finishing his senior year. He's one of that legendary class of 2020 who gets a different kind of experience this year in terms of finishing their high school experience. But we're joyful to be together. We're joyful to walk on mission in our neighborhood in Briggs Ranch. We're excited to carry the message of Christ in our region and in terms of what we do and how we live. And Matt, who has joined me, is going to introduce himself briefly, and then we're going to talk about the agenda for the webinar.
Yeah, so really grateful just to be a part. And married to Katie and have four kids from 17 to 2. So we're all kind of learning how to drive and learning how to walk at the same time. Got interested in digital about 10 years ago when I was living in Asia and saw how just the introduction of the internet and access to smartphones and different things totally changed the culture and society and how just pervasive it was. And if we as Crew and as followers of Jesus want to be intentional and present with the people in our lives, we had to be serious about how we saw digital playing a part in that. And Jeff, it's just been great to be working with you and connecting closely with pastors and churches and thinking about how the whole body of Christ can really be present with God in this moment of that He's allowed us to live in.
We're excited to be able to be working together on this experience of taking steps of faith with God. You might be in North America, you might be in another place, another country around the globe. Might not be in a life situation like us where we are men who are married and have families. You might be a young student who is looking at what does it mean to be engaged with my friends now in this new context, or as maybe society begins to work together. You might be someone who is newly moved into a new place, or you're in a work transition. We want you to know that missional life is something that we can do because we are in relationship with Jesus, no matter what situation he has us in, whatever we face in terms of our life or our world situation. So we want to give you some background a little bit. Let me go through the agenda, just kind of what we want to hit on this seminar today. We're going to talk about taking a step of faith. We want to show you an example of that through a video. Then we're going to talk about principles of missional living. What does it mean to live on mission with God? And taking steps of faith, what does that actually look like? How do we do that? We're going to show you a short demo of the MissionHub app, which is actually an app that helps you do that, and you do that in communities with other people to live that way intentionally. And then there's a lot of development because of the shift in our world situation of things that are coming up in terms of the work with MissionHub. We have resources to support you. And of course, we're going to have 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So as Erica said at the beginning, please do type your questions in the Q&A forum. So we think that it would be helpful for you just to watch this short video and to look at an example of a man taking a step of faith intentionally. So as you see in that video, it's as simple as being able to take the step of faith to be pulled out of our routine and maybe our habits, and to be able to actually step into the opportunity that God has ahead of us every day. You'll see on the screen just a focus on how we define missional living. So missional living has kind of become a buzzword and talked about a lot over the last 6 or 7 years. We define it very simply as the fact that missional living is living like Jesus by intentionally taking steps of faith to demonstrate and communicate the gospel to people in everyday life. So the two words that I want to really focus on there is intentionally, because we have to actually decide in the morning. One of the prayers that I pray often in the morning is, God, you're going to do great things today, and I want to be part of that. I want to join you in what you're already doing. You're working in my neighbor's life. You're working in the life of the person that I'm going to see at the grocery store. And I want to say, what opportunity is God going to open, and to make it personal and make it intentional in my life. And the other is that this missional living is not just, and we'll talk about this in terms of steps of faith, it's not just actually talking about the gospel and sharing the gospel message and even a call for response, but it's also doing everything that would allow there to be the context in which that message is heard as we share it with the words that we use. So it's how we're living. It's the intentional acts of kindness that we do. The experience that we have with that is the people who are in our life. So I want to challenge you right now just to think of who are the people in your life right now, because that has probably changed a little bit over the last 6 to 8 weeks to 4 months, depending on where you're living in the world. But who are the people in your life right now that you do have contact with? And now that might be digitally, virtually now, through different kinds of video calls or phone calls. But it also might be the person living in the apartment next to you. It could be the person that you see as you go down the street to go to the bakery to get bread, or to do the shopping that you need to do right now. But there's people in your life right now. And as you think about the people in your life right now, one of the underlying principles of missional life is every person matters. Now, intellectually, we know that. In our spirit, we know that. But it just goes back to the heart of the gospel, that God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believe in him would not perish but have eternal life. We just celebrated that in the April Easter resurrection celebration and Good Friday, that every person was desired by God to be in relationship with him. And he made that way to relationship with him through Jesus. Every person matters because every person was created in the image of God. If we can just train our minds and our hearts to remember that, of how much that God is at work in the lives of people, whether they have acknowledged him now or not, wherever they are on their spiritual journey. And really, that's the second principle underlying the idea of missional life and taking steps of faith, is to think as you engage a person. Now, who is that person that you have in your mind? I want you to think of a specific person, because we want to give you a challenge later to kind of take away from this. Who is that person? Is it the person next door, across the hall, and in the house near you? Is it the person that helps you when you go to the store? Who is that person? Because they're on a spiritual journey. Everyone is on a spiritual journey. And maybe you've studied this in other contexts, just the idea that there's people who are not yet do not yet know God through Jesus. Those people are on that journey toward the awakening and the understanding and the reception of the grace of God, right? And there's that before time. And then as people meet Jesus and experience the forgiveness of Christ, they're going to begin a journey of discipleship and a pathway of growth, and then of being a guiding believer and discipling. You see kind of a chart there on the screen that makes it that is very simplified version of that, kind of a 5-step version. Maybe there's the people who are uninterested. And although I think we're in a cultural moment, in a world moment, a global moment, where there is so much greater interest in spiritual things, the opportunity to have spiritual conversations with people. I think this category, uninterested, just became a lot less through the events that have been going on around the COVID-19 pandemic. So, but there are those people who are uninterested or resistant, who are committed to another faith. But then there's the people who are curious. They're ready to have that conversation, and then forgiven, growing, and guiding. As you think of that person, where might they land? Because it's going to matter the step of faith you take based on where they are on their spiritual journey. There's a third underlying principle that around steps of faith, is that when taking steps of faith, every step counts. Every step counts. I think in many of our contexts, we can begin to believe that one spiritual action or activity is bigger or better than another. Now, we think of milestones that people have, where you actually share the gospel and somebody responds and they say, yes, I'm ready, and you get to pray with them to receive Christ. Or someone who hasn't believed in God now says they do believe in God. They haven't yet come to believe in the gospel message in Christ, but now they actually are deists. They believe that God exists. So these milestone transitions, we would call them, moving maybe from one stage to another in terms of faith, that is huge. When you're forgiven, you experience water baptism. That's a huge public statement about that you're identified with Christ as a disciple of his. But we want you to know that every step counts. actually, when you think about in your own life, even as you have prayed to receive Christ, as you became a Christian, if you think of the witness in your life prior to that, maybe it was because you had the opportunity to be engaged with the Christian faith prior to coming to know Christ, and you were in the context of a church or a believing mother or father or family member. But maybe you came out of a background that was not in any way connected with the Christian faith, and you can trace back and say, well, I remember this conversation or receiving this booklet or being able to see this video or all the different things that people did in your life to help you to begin to understand and make that transition and that change and that openness to the message of God in your life. You have to think about that in your own life. Every step you take absolutely counts with the people in your life, the kindness that you show. And we want to kind of talk about that. And Matt and I are going to talk about that together. And something that maybe you can give you a mental map about this. We call it the gospel grid. And we've already talked about demonstrating and communicating the gospel, right? So that's kind of maybe our horizontal axis, that there's things we do and things we say that can make the difference in somebody's life. And maybe then if you look at a vertical axis, that there's good words that we can say, and maybe I would call them gospel words. So there's good that we can do, and there's good that human beings can do around the globe. So right now, if there's a nurse or a doctor who's a follower of Christ, or a nurse or a doctor who's not a follower of Christ, and they're administering medical care to people, that's helping them move through illness and move past illness. Both of those are absolute, goods as they serve and share and serve and care for people in the context of their illness. So those are the good things that can happen. But in the midst of that, what does it look like for a nurse who is a follower of Christ or a doctor who's a follower of Christ to actually see maybe what and how they do those activities as actually gospel work? So let's look at this grid put together in the next screen. And you can think about the fact that there's good that we can do or good that people can do that are going to show and warm the heart of people by what we do and what we say. Encouraging acts, encouraging words that bring hope, but they're not tied necessarily to our faith and our relationship with God. When we talk about gospel deeds or gospel words in taking a step of faith, it's where you're inviting God into that deed. It makes it something that's more than a good deed. It makes it a gospel deed because you're tying it. We sometimes discount, or we say in a kind of a mild way, where Jesus teaches, it says, even, if one of my followers gives a cup of cold water in my name, right? What does that mean? It means that we're doing things out of a motivation and actually out of an honor and out of a work for Christ. In the book of Colossians, it says, do our work not for people, but as if unto Jesus. And in the book of Colossians, Paul teaches that we're actually, when we're doing our work, we're doing the stuff of life, we're doing it for the Lord. So how are you doing it for that person as unto the Lord? How do you tie that to the words that you speak that tie your motivation to your faith, so that people would actually see what you do, hear what you say, and understand that God is the one who's alive in you. They see the Spirit of Christ in you. So when you're taking a step of faith with God, you're including God in it, and you're explaining why you're doing that, and you're receptive to that person's love and questions. And gospel deeds can involve things like sacrifice, can involve things like generosity, unexplained generosity. Sacrifice and generosity are huge in terms of gospel deeds, going out of your way. Now, and I'm not saying that people who don't know Christ can't do these things, but we're tying them to following the example of Jesus, who did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. That we're the disciples who are taking up our cross and following him and doing those things which, on all accounts, are living a life that's wanting to help people meet and know the living God, the one who has brought us life through Jesus Christ. Matt, just as you look at the gospel grid, what are some things that you want to share about that? Maybe an example from your own life.
Yeah, I think it's been when you first shared this with me, I guess last summer, it's been really helpful just to kind of frame out thinking about how God's inviting me to be a part of the lives of people around me. Seeing back to the video that we opened with, and the guy just driving in and out of his house, that's pretty much my story. I'm someone who prefers to kind of just be quiet in the background. I get nervous when I talk to other people, and I see there's a number of people on this call, so it's making me a little nervous. But just him getting out of it. I love the moment in that video when the camera's on his face and he has this decision to make, and he just captures that feeling. So like, do I want to shift my agenda of going inside to my house and going about my business to shifting to maybe opening up the opportunity for God to do something, and he makes that choice to get out of his car and walk a different direction. And I had almost the same experience in my neighborhood where I was finding myself coming back from work, getting off my bike, walking into the house, and just not coming out again. And I'm like, I need to make myself more available for the people that God has put around me, that are living around me. And walked outside one day, was playing with the kids on the street, and a neighbor from 3 places down was also out. And we had actually been hoping to get to know them. I had actually put the husband in to MissionHub, which is an app we're going to share in a second. Was like, okay, God, like, could you just create an opportunity, because I don't know how to do this. They were out. Well, they walked down the street, struck up a conversation with us, and just said, we've been hoping to meet you. We have daughters the same age. In fact, our daughter's kind of struggling right now. And I was like, whoa, like all of a sudden we got into this really deep conversation where they shared some things with us on their initiative. So it's like they were the ones taking a step towards us. And later I felt kind of bad. And that's one of the things, we don't want this to be a shame-based thing of like, you ought to, but it's like the invitation of expressing God's full love for people, and being a part of that. So I think this really, for me, helps me look at my life and think about the opportunities in my life differently. And I'm noticing more opportunities than I did in the past, because I'm actually like allowing myself to look around a little bit, and let God give me a chance to kind of point and say, just say hi, or just be present, or go deeper and actually risk that next question and that little bit deeper investment.
I would say that the experience that you had, Matt, is all of our experience, where we have to say to ourselves, what does it look like? How are we going to be able to make that step to be able to build that? And it really is, as you know so well, all about relationships. And right now, we want to think about, what do steps of faith look like in this moment? Because now there is a hunger for relationship. I've noticed, and I've looked at a lot of social media posts from people that I know, not only in the United States but around the world, that the hunger for relationship, the hunger for connection, the hunger for kindness is so much stronger right now, for connection with other people. And when and if you have that opportunity to have a phone call, a video chat, or maybe that you're having the opportunity to interact with someone out on the street, maybe standing at a distance from them, but still having a conversation. There's a powerful time right now to allow listening to be loving, to listen to others, because so many people, and especially those who don't yet know Christ, are living not with peace, but with fear. They're not living with joy. They're living with sadness. They're not living with hope. They're living with despair. They don't know what's coming next. And to be able to listen to them, to hear their heart, to acknowledge and affirm their emotional condition, to give them feedback as you listen to them of what you're hearing them say, and to ask them what's happening in their life. Invariably in that spiritual conversation, and you'll hear this in the other presentations that are happening this week and next week, encourage you to be on those. You're going to have the opportunity often to have that person ask you as well. And as they ask you, you're going to have the opportunity to step into a spiritual conversation with them, to talk about what's happening for you in terms of your relationship with God and how you're viewing this this season and this era. And steps of faith are going to look a little bit differently. And we've been thinking about that very actively, Matt, myself, the team that works with MissionHub, to think about what are these unique steps of faith that we can be taking during this time that are going to again demonstrate and communicate the reality of the love of Jesus to other people. So we want to take just a moment to consider the steps of faith that people are taking, because the idea of isolation is hard for people, and we want to demonstrate purposefulness. So you can see on the screen several of the steps that we've begun to put into the MissionHub app that we're going to share with you, so that people can be developing a sense of what God is doing in their life, the steps that you can take. I want to just quickly move on because we do want to show you this demo. That the last underlying principle of missional life, we've talked about the fact that every person matters. We've talked about that people are on a spiritual journey. I've challenged you to think about a person in your life. So that person matters to God. The name of the person that you're thinking of, that person is loved, crazy loved by God. That person is somewhere in terms of a spiritual journey, in terms of their life. And that person has got you in their life. And God's called you to take steps of faith with them. But God's also called us to take steps of faith in community with other people. People who are in our life that we want to be relating with together, doing missional life together. Joyfully, you saw my family earlier. Our family is a little household of God where we're seeking to live in community together and be intentional about living out our faith. So we have the privilege of having a household that way, but maybe you have a group, a person that you're discipling or working with, or is discipling you, that you can say, how do we do this together? Because it's so powerful. That's why Jesus sent people out, his disciples out 2 by 2 to do the work. That we are encouraged. The joy is magnified. It's doubled, and the trials and the suffering or difficulty we can face is cut in half because we have someone with us. So as you think about the person that you're wanting to do this, to reach out to show the love of Christ, to take steps of faith with, you can also think of, is there a wingman? Is there a buddy? Is there a best friend that I can say, hey, let's do this together? Because you're going to have such a better experience in terms of seeing that happen in your life. So that's what we did to develop MissionHub. You're just going to see on your screen that MissionHub is a free app to help you be intentional with those around you, one step of faith at a time. It's available on the App Store. It's available in Google Play. There's a QR code there on the screen if you want to take a shot of that, if that's helpful to you to find that app. But we're going to have Matt share a very short kind of presentation around what this MissionHub app does to help live out those principles that I shared of missional living, of being able to help us and come alongside us to help us take those steps of faith with the person that you have in mind. So Matt, take it away for the demo. After the demo, we're going to be doing Q&A, so please put those questions into the Q&A forum.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And I just want to say that even if the MissionHub app isn't something you choose to download and use, those principles that Jeff just walked us through are really important aspects of us growing in our relationship with God. And sometimes I've noticed in my own life that I can go to church, read the Bible, pray, worship, all those foundational core things. But I can sometimes hit a plateau in my spiritual growth. And what I've seen and what others on this call have seen is growth with God can kind of kickstart again when I start giving away and sharing what God has given me. And so whether or not you choose to use MissionHub, we hope that those principles are, true for all followers of Jesus and can be something that really serves you. I'm going to share my phone now, and I'm just going to walk us through a live demo, which is basically the app in the App Store. So I had the QR code on there if you wanted to download the app and follow along, but I'm going to do a fresh install. And let me just go back because it looks like it advanced the screen. So this is what you'll see when you download the app. Basically, there's 3 options for you. You can get started right away. If you have a community code, Jeff just talked about, it's better to go with the community of faith. If you have a community code, you can put it in there. Or if you have an account already, you can sign in. But for the sake of this demo, I'm going to click Get Started. And I'm going to walk through the first couple of screens, which kind of re-shares what Jeff walked through. And this is actually a great mechanism that we found. Pastors and other small group leaders and stuff have actually used these screens to help teach and coach and train people that they're investing in, other Christians, in terms of how to think this way. So MissionHub says, welcome, growing closer to God involves helping others experience Him. And MissionHub joins me in that journey by suggesting steps of faith to take with others. And so I'm going to click continue. It's going to ask my name. So I'll put in my name, Matt. And oh, hi, Matt. While everyone's spiritual journey is unique, wait, we heard that somewhere, right? That was one of the principles that Jeff shared. Many people progress through a 5-stage journey towards God. Let's figure out where I am on this journey. And so this is introducing that spiritual journey concept to the user of the MissionHub app. You'll recognize this from the screen, but it's kind of asking me where I am on the spiritual journey. So am I uninterested in Jesus? Am I curious? Am I forgiven but not growing spiritually? Jeff introduced these. Am I growing? Learning how to follow Jesus as a way of life? Am I committed? Am I guiding? Am I committed to helping others know and follow Jesus? Or am I not sure? For the sake of this demo, I'm going to click growing. And then, oh, great. MissionHub's so excited that I'm following Jesus. Thanks, MissionHub. We'd like to offer some steps of faith to help you grow closer to God and help others experience Him. So choose my steps. So because I chose growing, these are steps of faith that MissionHub has curated for me as somebody who's growing that I can take with myself or with others. But these are also steps that are going to encourage me to move into guiding others towards Jesus. So you can see one suggestion is, do I have a strained relationship in my life? Have a meal with them and seek restoration. Encourage someone in my family this week is one suggestion. Meditate on Psalm 91 and God is my refuge. That's actually a significant step in this season. Jeff, this is one of the chapters that you pointed me to, right? As this virus was kind of breaking and saying, hey, we could reflect on this chapter together. I could share my story with someone new. None of those resonate with me. I can always click show more steps. I can offer some more, but I'm going to click this second one, encourage someone in my family this week. We're all living much closer to people in our homes and houses. And I need to be more intentional to give words of blessing in life to my family. So I'm going to choose this step. And as you can see, in some of the steps of faith, MissionHub offers some extra help for me to take this step. So it offers God's view, so a scripture to encourage me in terms of taking this step. Gives me some practical tips on what this might look like to encourage someone in my family. If I'm facing some obstacles doing this step, it's going to give me how to maybe overcome this obstacle. And then once I take the step, how I can go further. So, I like to look at this step. I'm going to go ahead and add it to my steps and we'll keep going. So growing closer to God involves helping others experience Him. That's what I just mentioned, that it's not just me consuming and growing myself, but it's also me taking and giving that away to others. Take a moment and pray. Who do you want to take steps of faith with? So this is that kind of moment of pause and just to invite God into this process. Jeff did that on one of his earlier slides of asking all of us on this call, who's God put in your life that he's also putting on your heart to be intentional with? Okay, so I'm going to add someone. And I'm going to put initials TC. It's his first name. I'm going to hit continue. TC I've met a few times. He's in the neighborhood. Really great guy. Really like him. Haven't had tons of conversations with him, so I don't know a lot. So is he uninterested? Is he curious? Is he forgiven? Is he growing? Is he guiding, or am I not sure? Based on some of the conversations we've had, though, I think he's curious about faith. I think he's a spiritual guy. So I'm going to click here, and now I'm going to choose a step of faith to take with TC this week. And so these are different steps of faith based on TC and where he is on his spiritual journey of being curious. So Mission Hub's inviting me to share my fears and anxiety with TC as a way of building trust. Jeff, this is one of the things you mentioned in terms of like, it's not just about me speaking to people, but thinking about that gospel grid. What are some good words I can say, or even I can share my own weakness and frailty and can build that trust and empathy between the two of us. Ask TC what God's been teaching them this week. Ask TC if there's other people who they talk about God with. Invite TC to coffee. I can add some more steps and see. I also want to show you, though, if there's a step of faith that I know I want to take with TC, I can actually create a custom step and put that in here. TC is always out on the weekends. He likes to wash his car. So I'm going to walk over and chat with TC on Saturday. And I'll be sure to stand, 6-10 feet away, just social distancing. But I'm going to add that step because that's something I want to do. And I think it's an opportunity that's there. Okay, so now we're in the app. And you can see here, there's 3 main tabs below at the bottom. There's steps, people, and communities. I'm just going to walk through steps real fast. The 2 steps that I accepted, one for myself to take and one with TC, are here on my steps of faith. And every step that I've accepted will be listed here for me to come back through. I can tap in to the step and get reminded again, take a look at it some more. I can also set a reminder on the screen. You can see here I said walk over and chat with TC on Saturday. Well, I can hit this reminder button and I can say on Saturday, April the 18th at 9:30 a.m. I want Mission Hub to remind me to go do this. I can also set a daily, every day, a weekly, or a monthly reminder. And so I'm going to hit done. And there you go. So Saturday at 9:30 a.m., Mission Hub's going to tap my shoulder and say, hey, remember that thing, that person that was important to you and that thing that you wanted to do? Let's go do it. Let's go see what God has for us. So that's the steps of faith. I'm going to go into people. And these are the people that, so myself is in here and TC is in here. I'm going to click into TC and show you what's available within each person view. So this is a list of the steps of faith that I've accepted. If I've completed the step of faith, I can click that check mark. I'll come back and do that in a second. I also have a section for my notes. And let's say I'm chatting with TC. He shares some things that are important with me, some things he likes. I can add to my private notes so I don't forget. And you'll hear later in the testimony that we kind of wrap up with one of our users, how this feature was actually super, super helpful for him. And then there's our journey, which is basically the thread, the history of my relationship with TC and God's work in that relationship. So over time, as I take steps of faith, they'll be put here. I can see the notes that I've added. And I love to come to this place, our journey, and just scroll through and remember, reflect on what God has done, how he's used me, and also use it to pray. But let's go over here and let's say it's Saturday at noon. And I actually took this step of faith. I'm going to click that square. And after you complete a step of faith, we always ask, what did you see God do? And this is one of the things that we want to cultivate in our hearts. We want us to be watchful. When we take steps of faith, when we move out into the world, did God do anything? And it could be small, it could be huge, whatever. But I could just say, had a good time connecting. Feel like there is a natural opportunity to continue to chat. I misspelled it, but who cares? Add to my journey. And then MissionHub gives me a little celebration. I love the narwhal. That's my favorite gift. And there's little gifts scattered around throughout the app. And so we can click over here to our journey, and you can see that was added to that list. So that's the basic core of the app. The people that are in your life that you're wanting to be intentional with, bring God's love to, the steps of faith that you're trusting God to take. And that's really the heart of what MissionHub's trying to do, those principles pack into that. But as Jeff mentioned, doing it alone, you can do it. MissionHub will support you and kind of be your sidekick in this adventure. But if you have a faith community, how amazing would this be to do this together, right? How amazing would it be that your church, your small group, other friends that also follow Jesus, that want to be intentional, live with purpose, to do that together and to be able to see that and celebrate that. And that's what we built in the communities feature. Now you can see up top, you can join a community if you have an invite from a community, or you can create a community. I'm going to tap on this. And this is where we need to know a little bit more information about you to give you the ability to create a community and invite others in to join you. So at this point, you'll have to create an account. I won't go through those steps right now, but just to let you know that. But I'm going to join a community, and I was given a community code, which I'll show you how to find that and send that later. But the community code was the number 2, the letter D, the number 9, the letter E, the number 9, and the number 1. And MissionHub found it. It's called Cheez-Itsville, and this is just a demo community. And this is my favorite snack food, by the way. So I'm going to hit join, and I've just been added to the Cheez-Itsville community, where I can see there's 16 other people in this community. I'm going to tap in. Any user of the app has the ability to create an account and create communities and invite people in, and all of this power is for you, and all of this is for free. We haven't mentioned that yet, but it's something that Crew, partner with Indigitus and others, generous donors have made this available for you for free, to see you supported and served and taking steps of faith. So the first thing you'll see is the celebrate feed. And this is where, when people in the community take steps of faith, we all get notified. And we don't have to wait. I don't have to wait to bump into Steve to know that he completed a step of faith with a guiding person. I can click that heart and celebrate him. I can also tap into that, and I can comment and say, awesome job, Steve. And I can even ask, what did God do? And we can have a little conversation down here around this step of faith, and Steve can unpack, if he wants to, what God did and what step he took. You'll notice that we keep that pretty basic. Steve completed a step of faith with a guiding person. We don't let you know what step Steve took. We also don't let you know who Steve took that with. And that's just for privacy's sake, because we know that Steve's relationships with these people are really important. He's investing in them, and we want to protect that privacy, but give Steve the ability in this commenting area to really unpack that and encourage the rest of the community. So that's the celebrate feed. Every community also has a challenges tab, and I'm super excited about this, that if you're the owner or the administrator of a community, you have the ability to create challenges, which are basically steps of faith for the whole community to take. And you'll see here that there's one active challenge for this community. Make a funny video and send it to someone who is anxious and sad. You know, there's a lot of people right now around the world that are feeling a lot of emotional pressure. Their relationships might be difficult. They maybe have lost their job. You know, the whole world's kind of down right now. This is a chance. Okay, so this community, Cheez-Itsville, you know what? Let's bring some love. Let's bring some joy. Let's bring some life. Create a funny video, send it, and continue to build those relationships. I'm not great at making funny videos, but it sounds like a good idea. So I'm going to click join and join this challenge. Now, one of the things, I can click into this card and I can see, and you as the owner of the community can see who has joined the challenge. So far, it's just me. But as other people join, this list grows. And then you can also, when people complete it, see a check mark next to their name to say who completed it. Now, let's say there were 3 people in here. 3 people join this challenge, and you are the community owner. That's an invitation for you as a community owner to move closer to those 3 people and to help them take that challenge. Maybe a challenge you create is to read a chapter of the Bible. Maybe a challenge you create is to memorize a section of scripture. Maybe it's to invite a friend over for a meal. Maybe it's whatever, right? When you see people joining it, it's your opportunity to join into their spiritual journey and disciple them, coach them, mentor them into the things that you're encouraging them to do. And then there's also the ability, it's not in here, but to add extra details when you create a challenge. So you could add links to videos or links to blog posts or whatever that could be resources to help people actually take this challenge. There's the members tab where you can see who's a part of the community. From this members tab, you can click send invite, and through a share sheet, you can send the text code and invite link, or the invite code and invite link through any social channels, WhatsApp, SMS, email, Twitter, whatever you got. As well, up in the top right behind these three dots is kind of, you can always find your community invite code and your community invite link. And you just hit copy and you can paste it wherever you want to invite people. And then lastly is the impact screen. And this is a picture, and this will continue to grow over time, but what is God doing? As a community, as we're being intentional, to see how, what are we doing? So as a community in 2020, we've taken 26 steps of faith with 21 people. And it's really fun for me to stop and imagine, like, what is true now in those 21 people's lives because somebody did an intentional loving thing towards them. And 11 people actually reached a new stage on their spiritual journey, and that's something we want to see happen as we invest in people's lives, as God works. People can move from curious to forgiven, or uninterested to curious, or from growing to guide. And we want to celebrate that. So, Jeff, I think that's the core. Anything I missed? I want to jump back and finish the rest of those slides and get to Q&A. I'm going to stop.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's click back over to the screens just for a moment. What we want to do is leave time for some Q&A, but we did want to share a couple of things with you briefly about what Matt just shared in terms of the app, kind of a coming soon. We're adding value rapidly. We're responding to the current COVID-19 crisis. We'll answer a question about that here just in a moment. But we are doing things around a pray, care, share, relate model. And so you're going to see this coming up if you download the app today. You're going to see this actually come into play this week and next week, where there's going to be a little bit of a different design where you can look at steps within those different categories. We also are wanting people to go deeper in community. So we're really building out the social function that Matt was describing to you about how people are going to be able to relate as a community, to pray and be prayed for, to ask and answer questions and provide help. It's really going to allow missional living discipleship. So the group of people that you're around that are wanting to take steps of faith together can operate within the app. So those resources are there on the app. Again, we've said that you can download this on the App Store or get it on Google Play. That's the QR code again. Again, you can just go in and type in MissionHub to either of those to find it. We also have a website, get.missionhub.com, where you're going to find resources to help you in your faith. We've written almost 30 blogs now on this topic. So like, does taking a step of faith have to be scary? Subjects we've just wrote 2 related to the current COVID-19 situation we're facing globally. So that's going to allow you to grow in terms of your knowledge in that. We also have videos that are available to you, demo videos as well as inspirational videos like we showed at the beginning. One of those inspirational videos is from a person named Joe. And if we click down 2 screens there, Matt, we're going to see the quote from Joe. That's Joe's voice. And we encourage you to go on the missionhub.com. You can see that video, but he says this great quote in his testimonial. I hope that as other people use MissionHub, we will see people who are following Jesus really rising up and demonstrating the care that God has for the people around us. And that's our prayer for you, wherever you're tuning in or watching later this video. We want to see that happen in your context. So, Erica, I want to throw it back to you because there were some good questions and we want to take a few minutes now to answer those.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Just thrilled to hear more examples and practicality. And so we're going to head into some Q&A. First question for you guys to answer, just briefly, as we have a few of them, is from Denny in Indonesia. And he asked, how do I start taking steps of faith with my neighbor when most of my neighbors are very sensitive about talking about Jesus? And David even asked, could you make your answer to Denny pretty specific if you have ideas of steps?
Yeah, so I think that, and I typed this also in the Q&A answer there, is if you put somebody specific in your into the MissionHub app under uninterested, there's going to be some steps that you could that are specific in there that you could take with them. I think for the people who are very sensitive about Jesus, again, on pray, care, share, relate, you really need to start on pray and relate, and being able to talk to God about people before you talk to people about God. Holy Spirit will guide you in terms of when it is time to share about your faith, but to develop a genuine love and care for those persons, and to let them know that the things that motivate you are your own personal faith and your own convictions in Christ. And so looking for those opportunities to do that, and that's often going to be in like the context that you're in, Denny, in a one-on-one type of setting. You could also pray for miracles. You know, you can pray for God to show himself in ways that the person can't explain. And that could be through dreams and visions, that can be through something miraculous happening in terms of health or their living context. And don't be afraid to ask God to show himself to that person to be the real, true, and living God, because that's a wonderful way to take that step forward.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Another question is from Simon from Congo. He's asking, is the MissionHub app also in other languages? If so, how do we change languages?
Yeah, so currently it's in Spanish and English. The app detects the language of your phone, and if MissionHub is in that language, will automatically switch the app to that language and then suggest steps of faith from that part of the world or from that language group. We're currently have Portuguese in progress. Russian is being considered. So yeah, if you're interested or curious in seeing MissionHub in your own language, there's kind of a process that we work, because it's not just a translation thing. If you think about steps of faith, relevant steps of faith that resonate with people are different in all parts of the world. And there can be that similar gospel grid, but how that looks and how that gets lived out on your street or in your country or in your language group can look different. So there's a process of not just translating, but actually creating the steps of faith for those stages in that place.
Yeah, just a quick story on that, Erica. Just that in terms of Spanish, that's how that happened, is translating the actual content of the app is easy. The steps of faith need to be contextualized. So there was a group that went down to Argentina at a gathering of Spanish-speaking ministry leaders there and pastors, and they generated those steps of faith. So we're excited throughout this year as travel begins to be able to happen again, or to do it virtually, to have people initiate with us so that we can build those steps of faith in other languages.
Great. Thanks, Jeff and Matt. I just really want this last question and then we got to move on, but if you could answer quickly. So Caitlin is asking, so would you suggest only inviting people to a community who were all in the same spiritual place in their journey, since the group tasks would be geared towards that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think this is for you, it's kind of the spiritual guide, leader of that people to really know the situation. We've seen a diversity. So if you think in the stages, follower, growing, and guides, having those people together is a way for followers. And I even think of your poll, you know, some people are like, I'm nervous, I'm a little bit scared, but them being a part of a community and seeing other people taking steps of faith, hearing the story of what God's doing, can give them courage as well as context. And I think one of the things that Cru and other churches and missions groups have understood is that role of modeling is so important in learning how to live out your faith. And this Mission Hub community is a place in which you, Caitlin, and others can model what that looks like in your own life, such that other people can kind of catch it and start trying it themselves. How you create those challenges, you can understand your community and right size it to stretch them a little bit.
Well, Jeff and Matt, thank you so much. We so appreciate you sharing with us and for showing us how every person matters. Everyone's on a spiritual journey and how we can take a step of faith even today in community. I'm really excited for us to ask God for someone to invite into a conversation about his love and what he's doing in their life. And so again, want to let you all know that you'll be receiving an email with the links as well as the link to this recording of this workshop. You can access the resources on our website as well as using the QR code in the next slide. And want to encourage you to trust God, to share and start a conversation or take a step of faith with 5 people. We want to invite you on the website, our website, to give us feedback. There's a survey there if you scroll down, as well as let you know this workshop was hosted by Indigenous. And so if you would like to join our community of people around the world who are using technology to advance the mission of Jesus, join us on Facebook. You'll have access to more resources and encouraging stories, as well as being able to share your own, which we're really excited about. Please feel free to join us for any of the other 3 workshops on having conversations about Jesus, using the God Tools app, hosting a digital day of outreach, and starting spiritual conversations using the Jesus Film app. As well as, if you enjoyed this workshop and thought of a friend who you wish could have been here right now, there's one more chance next week on April 23rd, Thursday, from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We will hear from Jeff and Matt once again, the same workshop. And so you can send your friend a link to sign up. So we just want to say thanks again for joining us. We know God will use you as you take steps of faith, and we hope to see you again. Goodbye.